I was living like this life at the time and through my teens where I had the world that I had to be a part of, school and stuff, and then the world that I wanted to be a part of, hanging out with friends, playing video games, things like that. I never thought I would be able to reconcile those worlds. I always felt like there'd be a part of me that just had to do the things I didn't want to do, and then there was a part of me that actually got to do the things that I enjoyed. And real estate was the bridge. The real estate, I saw that I could play the economy game, I could play the financial game, I could play the buy and sell game, and use the exact skills and things that I love to do inherently as like a purebred entrepreneur, and actually use that bridge to go and build the life that I want to live.
Hey guys, it's Whitney. I wanted to take some time to introduce you to my good friends over at PassiveInvesting.com. They're a national private equity real estate firm based out of the Carolinas. They focus on acquiring institutional quality apartments and self-storage facilities. They do this with private accredited investor funds. They have a portfolio of over $700 million in assets and control over $250 million in equity from their investors. PassiveInvesting.com makes it easy for you to start investing in real estate without all the hassles. They even have an average 62% repeat investor rate in each offering they put together. They even have a real estate debt fund that offers hard money loans to local fix and flippers across the U.S., which currently has a 0% default rate. To help you learn more, they've put together a free passive investor guide that outlines the 7 red flags for passive apartment and self-storage investing. Visit PassiveInvesting.com/red flags to download the PDF now. That's PassiveInvesting.com/red flags. This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Will Brown. Will is the CEO of TitanX, a company committed to building the world's smoothest customer experience through context-based natural language understanding technology. He plans to transform modern customer service in every industry through the use of smooth and intuitive AI while laying foundation for a future where human-computer communication is seamless and drastically lowers the learning curve for people across the world who will need reskilling due to humanity's transition into the artificial intelligence age. In his free time, Will loves to hang with friends and spend time in nature, learn unique skill sets. And today, Will has a background in real estate. He is now into TitanX, this other company that he has started. But some cool things you are going to learn about Will is, I think he's 22 years old. I mean, he has accomplished a lot before the age of 22 and a lot in real estate. And we're going to talk about some of that today. You know, I just think as I interview somebody like Will, who is just after it, right? I mean, he's 22. He's already done a lot in real estate. It should help just blow some limiting beliefs for you out of the water. Right. And I heard that many years ago. It's like, oh, you have not done this long enough yet, or you feel like you can't do it because you're not experienced enough or old enough yet. Well, Will is just not letting anything like that hold him back. And you're going to hear that today, but he's surpassed that many times over. But I hope that it's encouraging to you as you have those limiting beliefs and are wondering, hey, can I do this? Can I step out? It's hard to be uncomfortable, right? Well, Will's going to help you with that today, but we're going to go into some morning routine stuff as well. And even just why most people aren't doing it, right? He's the youngest guy in the room, and I was at GoBundance with him, and he is the youngest guy in the room. About 300 guys in there that are all doing amazing things. And so I just hope that you learn a lot from Will today and are encouraged, and that you lose some of those limiting beliefs because of the discussion today. Here we are at GoBundance from the Real Estate Syndication Show. The listeners, you have not heard me from GoBundance or from too many remote locations, but I'm excited to be here this week at an event with some amazing entrepreneurs. We interview every day, and I'm so grateful that you're with us again today because I have another amazing entrepreneur. His name is Will Brown. Will, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much, Whitney. Great to be here.
Will has an amazing story that I know is going to encourage you, and you are going to learn a lot. The more I'm learning about him, even just in the last 30 minutes. I'm just excited to present him to you and his story. Just want to get right into it, Will, but so encouraged myself even by what I know about you. He's going to blow some limiting beliefs that I know that you have. We have all had at some time or another. And so this is going to be a very helpful podcast if you're getting started in this business, really almost in so many parts of your life. Most likely it doesn't have to be real estate investing or even a real estate business. I'm looking forward to this. You're 22 right now?
Yeah, that's right.
You have done some big
things, and you started years ago now, in real estate and business. I want to go back a little bit further because I feel like part of that story is helpful for probably many listening right now who are thinking a lot of things of what you and I talked about just a couple minutes ago, and why, the college thing and all that. So I want to go back to that time and get us started a little bit. That journey, you were in college, and what happened and why, and let's move from there.
Totally. If I get your partnership in this can be a conversation. And, for me to even understand, how did I get to doing and the things I'm doing and thinking the things I'm thinking in the way that I'm going about it, here at 22, if we can answer that question over the course of this conversation, that's a win for me, because sometimes I can't always put the pieces together. But if I go back to the beginning, I grew up on a farm in Northern Virginia, and my closest friend was like a mile away. And so I spent a lot of time playing in nature and just being bored. And then as I started to get into a little bit more school, I learned about some very fascinating statistics, like in the 3rd grade. I don't know where or how I found them, but I saw that 70% of people don't like their jobs. Like, they actually hate their jobs, 70% of Americans. And then further, like 67% of people who get a college degree do not work inside the field that they got the degree for. And so I discovered that. I was like, wait a second, why is nobody talking about this? Pretty much what that meant is when my teachers told me things, I didn't blindly trust them. I took everything they said with a grain of salt. Because look, if these are the statistics and you're going to put me on a, elementary school, middle school, high school to college to job route, law of large numbers says I'm probably going to fall into those statistics. I just started to ask questions at a very young age. I think that's different than what maybe some of my peers or classmates were asking. And I was like, what would it look like if I put my life into my own hands? What would it look like if I carved my own path? What if it would look like if I modeled the people who live the lives that I want to live, rather than just resigning to the system and it's going to dump me wherever it dumps me? And so my first 18 years of, school, I sort of had that percolating, and that those thoughts were growing louder and louder and louder. My frustration with the system was growing louder and louder. Whenever we had to write essays, like English class, I'd always write essays about why the education system is outdated. My English teachers, they did not like that. But where that sort of ended up is I had this pivotal moment. I went to this seminar with my mom in 2016, for a weekend seminar for real estate. What they were teaching was like single family off-market acquisitions, wholesaling. I was like, I don't know if this is legitimate. I don't know if this is legal, but if it is, I want to learn everything I can about this. And so at the time, I was really big into video games, because that was my outlet. That was ability for me to carve and create the reality that I wanted to live in, because school was super boring to me, and I just did not like where that path was going to end up. I went to the seminar, and I came back, and my head started spinning, and a seed was planted. And, they wanted to, upsell my mom and I $20,000 that we did not have to go to the boots on the ground training. And so we were pissed off about that. But a couple months later, after that seed had been planting, it started to germinate. And it started to germinate one day when I was playing a video game, and they came out with this update where you could buy a property. And I was like, you know what? I want to start doing this in real life. And I unplugged my Xbox at the time, and I went online, found Bigger Pockets, bought a bunch of books, and literally every single spare second I had for about the next year and a half when I was in high school just spent diving into learning the entirety of the real estate space.
So that was while you were in high school. That was before you ever went to college. Oh, actually, I want to go back a little further. You grew up on a farm. What did you all do on your farm?
Yeah, so we had vineyards. We did wine, and I sort of learned, one year it was frost that kills it. Another year it was bugs that killed it. And so I saw my parents sort of tried to do multiple full-time jobs. Both of my parents were landscape architects. And so they didn't successfully pull off the winery. And then we had hay and a couple animals as well.
How do you feel, or do you, like growing up on a farm affected your entrepreneurial or journey?
I think I'll probably be answering that question my entire life. I think what it created was sort of this green field, blue sky mentality. It wasn't like, in this little house in an alleyway and the entire world was my street. You know what I mean? I could look around, I could see, meadows for miles, and it was really beautiful. And it's just, I think, probably allowed my creativity to blossom, my ability to ask questions and not always just try and find like, what's going to be the bare minimum path for survival? But like, how can we really thrive? How can I create a life that's beautiful, just like what my parents had created? They both grew up very poor, and then they moved to Northern Virginia and got this awesome house and then this amazing farm. And I'm so blessed to be able to start life there. That's the biggest blessing and privilege that I had.
That's awesome. I also grew up on a farm. I feel like that early on, that was so good for me. Like, I had to be up early, mucking stalls before I went to school, right? Doing those things. I feel like that instilled many things in me that still have just helped me as an entrepreneur, in business in many ways. So it's interesting that you bring that up. But you learned, or you figured out, that most people go to college and they don't love what they're doing, and most don't even end up in a field what they went to school to study for, right? And so what really turned you on to that, or what helped you to see that? Because I feel like, as even my children, I think, man, how can I help them to see that, right? How can I help them to want to be entrepreneurs, right? And to see that, hey, it's so limitless, right? You do not have to go down this path, right, that most people do and be so limited. What really turned you on to that? It sounded like your mother even took you to a real estate seminar, but that was after you were already like desiring something different.
Yeah, I've come to think recently that, we were hunter-gatherers and then we were an agrarian society. And so if you think about that, that is more entrepreneurial than the Industrial Revolution. But we have an education system that's built to create workers for the Industrial Revolution. This is not controversial. This is very clear. And you go to the time frame and it's like, oh, I started to connect the dots and I started to see how they weren't giving me the tools for me to create myself to be whoever they want to be. It seemed like trying to mold me in a way that would fit the system and the need for labor and workers, which has been happening and which has been needed for the last 50 to 100, 150 years. But society is rapidly evolving. Like with the advent of the internet age and how decentralized information is and how I could go and learn anything that I wanted to, in a split second, I asking a question into my phone. It's like the world is much different, this sort of strategy that they're giving me on how to grow up. And so I basically said, nah, I'm going to take a risk and keep asking questions and make decisions for myself rather than blindly accepting that. And I think the default has then been that I don't have a lot of that programming just because I put into short-term memory. I'd always study right before tests. If I didn't think the material was relevant to my life, so then I would forget it. I don't know why I cared to get like ace tests. For some reason, I'm still like part of that incentive structure, but I didn't want to clog my brain with irrelevant things. I wanted to mold myself to be someone that could look at things newly and provide new solutions and opportunities.
It's interesting that you had that drive, even at such a young age. It's very rare. However, you went to that seminar. How old were you when you went to that seminar, and did that really spark you into real estate?
It absolutely did. Yeah, it was a pivotal moment, and I was 16. And I was realizing I had this crazy thought because I was just learning how to drive. I was like, wow, everybody here knows how to drive. That's crazy. And it was like, things come with age. But then I realized the insecurity that I first felt of basically being 16 years old in a room filled with 30, 40, 50, 60-year-olds. I was like, first, I don't belong here. And the second was, wait a second, I've never met somebody who could trade their money for a longer life. And I realized if I considered myself to be the wealthiest person in that room, that was a much more empowering belief. I believe we choose our own beliefs, and we can either choose the reactive one that wants to keep us safe and, keep us in our side of our comfort zone, which is, hey, this isn't for me. I should probably go back to the path with the rest of the people my age. But then I was like, wow, I have a massive opportunity here to learn from others and also be a contribution and see. I was literally, where could I be if I was to implement these things here at 16, 17, 18, 19, rather than 50, 60, 70. And I was like, how much more of a contribution could I be to the world and to myself and to my family if I did that?
What gave you the desire to do that? And I just want to, I'm not going to spend a ton more time on this. I want to get to some bigger things too, or, the rest of your journey, because it's going to be so helpful to the listeners. But it's so rare at 16 to put the Xbox down or to see the opportunity there and to harness it. And I'll, just recently, I have a niece and nephew, and it reminds me of my nephew. I think he's 17 now, and my niece is 13. I gave them 2 books, and I'm paying them to read some specific books, right? I want to change the way they think about entrepreneurship and real estate and money and just life, right? In many ways. I found that even offering to pay them, there's almost no drive still to do it, It's I'm like, oh, come on, but you did that. You noticed the opportunity and man, you pursued it. What happened by the time you're 18?
Yeah, so my fuel compounded frustration for 15 years, right? It was not like, and again, it's if I go back to all the exact events, it'd be very fascinating. Like I said, I'm still trying to answer that question myself as to how did I get this spark? But I was desperate. And I was like, wow, I was living like this life at the time and through my teens where I had the world that I had to be a part of, school and stuff, and then the world that I wanted to be a part of, hanging out with friends, playing video games, things like that. I never thought I would be able to reconcile those worlds. I always felt like there'd be a part of me that just had to do the things I didn't want to do. And then there was a part of me that actually got to do the things that I enjoyed. And real estate was the bridge. The real estate, I saw that I could play the economy game, I could play the financial game, I could play the buy and sell game, and use the exact skills and things that I'd love to do inherently as like a purebred entrepreneur, and actually use that bridge to go and build the life that I want to live. And so once I saw that the bridge could be built, I took all the energy from one and just funneled it together. And so by the time I was 18, I had probably 500 podcasts listened to under my belt. I was going to RIAs. I was, in college, I was leaving my classes early to go drive a couple hours to a RIA. I met a couple mentors. I met a mentor, and I was basically, I remember I was just setting up a security camera at one of his flip houses. And there was a conversation that we had that really changed my life there too, because at the time I was sort of buying and selling stuff, like buying and selling electronics, and he was demoing a property. There were some like nice Ray-Ban sunglasses. It's like, oh, these are worth like $70. That's awesome. And I was like, hey man, if I take this stuff and sell it, can we like split it 50-50? He's like, man, you can take it for free. I don't care. I was like, wait, why? He's like, because I'm gonna make 100 times that flipping this property. And that's when I started to discover dollar productive activities and the ability to use leverage. And then I just continued to compound that. May of 2018 is when I left college, went down to Norfolk, Virginia. I was going to college at William & Mary in Williamsburg. Went down, met up with a couple guys from the Navy who were at this RIA as well. They were sort of like wanting to get out of the Navy, start this as well. Sleep on air mattress for the first couple months, making cold calls, going to the courthouse to get probates, just like really dig in the trenches, not knowing what I didn't know. But I learned that the morning routine was everything. So I started getting up early. I started reading books every single morning. Even though it felt cheesy and it felt artificial and it felt like I was stepping into shoes much bigger than the ones I could fill, I kept that consistent practice up. And inside of that, learned some very fundamental strategies of just how to organize, your time and how to organize your focus and your energy. And most importantly, the things not to do, right? As soon as you do a $10,000 deal, don't go buy an $8,000 car. Basic things like this that conventional wisdom says as soon as people can't afford something, they go out and leverage themselves up to the hilt with debt.
Especially at 18.
100%.
That's so impressive, though, that you did that. Tell me about, how your family saw this. So, and we didn't go into much of that, but you were in college for a year, you dropped out, and I wanted you to highlight there, why you saw that option, or it was okay for you to leave college and quit that to go pursue something else.
Yeah, I think there's something very interesting about that because I actually didn't want to go to college because I was probably 300 podcasts in by the time high school ended, but I did not have means I couldn't even sign on the dotted line for properties. Even though I was going out putting, I was like, if I actually find a deal, I have to have my parents sign. That's pretty embarrassing, but that didn't stop me. And so I really got to acknowledge my parents because from a very young age, they didn't try and steer me to a path. They always steer me to, Will, you make your own choices. We recommend you make the choices that are going to give you the most options. And from parenting standpoint, I don't know if there's better advice because what you're basically saying is, hey, make choices to set yourself up to choose the life that you want to live. And so I don't think they were happy. When I got that offer letter, I said, yeah, this is fine, but I'm probably going to drop out anyway. I think sometimes we say things and then those things come true. I think actually all the time we say them. If there's belief behind it, they come true over a certain amount of time. And so with it, they were concerned, as any parents probably should be. But I think they also had seen that this wasn't sort of flimsy with a commitment. They've seen me for the last couple of years change my entire life, change my habits, even when I was high school. And I would lock my door when I was listening to podcasts and taking notes on, so they wouldn't disturb me. And I missed dinners. So they saw the commitment. And I think they had the faith that they needed to. They were still definitely gravely concerned probably because they went the college route and so did my older brother. He went the college route. But then a couple months later, we locked down our first couple of deals and I started to say, hey, this is actually working. And then we just scaled up from there.
That's awesome. I love thinking through the parenting aspect of that as well. I was also, and my mom has supported me in every endeavor, and pursued just the best for me, and encouraged me and which has been amazing. However, most of our family would have said, hey, you need that diploma, right? You need that to go have a great job and have that security, right? And I did not go to college though either. It turned out quite well. I'm thankful now that I did not, because I think that would have changed the trajectory of my entire life. So a couple things you said there though, and I didn't even know we were going to talk about this, but I've talked about it many times on the show because this changed my business as well. Once I was very purposeful with my time in my morning routine, that is when I started unleashing education that I had not had time for before, right? I started learning faster than I had ever learned before and things that I could start doing to make things happen. Right? It was that morning routine. Go into your morning routine a little bit, and I still want to get more into real estate and even to what you're doing now and how that's changed over the last couple of years. Tell us about your morning routine and why that's so crucial, maybe some details of how you structure that. And I love how you say it seems mundane. And yes, most podcasts, you'll hear somebody talk about morning routine, and a lot of people shrug it off. I'm not a morning person or whatever. And I would say, hey, I try to tell myself that as well, and so did my wife, right? And then when I started getting up early, eventually she started getting up early, and it's become our favorite time of the day, together. It's been just crucial in our relationship and entrepreneurial journey. Tell me some highlights of your morning routine that's been essential for your success.
Yeah, and my morning routine has evolved over the years, and it's sort of fluctuated, I think, in tandem with, depending on the work that I was doing, how much structure and rigor versus how much creativity was required. And so if I go back to 2018 and I go back to doing these first couple deals, my morning routine was waking up at 5 a.m., drinking a cup of black coffee, and jumping right into like a cold shower, jumping right into the books. And I think I want to do this because I wanted to build an identity for myself, how I saw myself, consistent with who I saw I needed to be to pull off what I wanted to pull off. And so that was the biggest part of it, is when you wake up and you say, you win that first decision of your day. First of all, I hate getting up early. I still hate getting up early. I love my sleep, and I'll also sleep 10 hours pretty much on the dot if I just let myself sleep. And I also now have built incredible communities. And so sometimes I stay up later doing some awesome things with people. I'm still sort of trying to reconcile that. But there were some times like over this last year, and we'll talk about the tech that I'm building now, where it wasn't so much about me getting up and hitting the phones. It was about me being able to be the most creative person I could be and be able to see things without stress and without that. And so sometimes, and over the course of months, I let myself sleep in much more. Really, really just depends. I'm at this stage now here as we're launching this product we've been building over the last 2 years, where I'm like, really, I feel like I'm scratching this habit and I want to get back to that structure. And it is one of the hardest things. I think habits are so hard to break. And so for me, what usually that comes down to is called cold water therapy, which is, if I have roommates or people that live around me, if we're not up or meeting here at a certain time, get a glass of cold water on my face. That tends to do it for me.
That's some accountability right there. I like that. I'll have to tell my wife that I'm going to start trying that with her. Right? No, I'm kidding. Of course. And I'm not going to keep on about the morning routine, but I hear people, like I said, often say, "Oh, that's not for me. That's not important. You don't have to do that to be successful." Well, no, you don't have to. But I've interviewed 12 or 1,300 people over the last 3 or 4 years. And more times than not, the ones that are very successful, I would say 80% of the time, guess what? They have a structured morning routine. They do. You mentioned it at one point early on. It's like finding the people that are doing what you want to do. What are they doing to make it happen? It's not rocket science, right? So let's go figure some of those things out and meet those people and start figuring out the habits that they have. Okay, so I want to move forward a little bit. You got into real estate. You started, were you flipping homes? What were you doing right there?
I was just wholesaling, contracting assignments to contract.
Okay, so you started wholesaling. How did that transition? What happened in your real estate business? How did that grow? What did that look like over that? You started at 18, wholesaling. Give us the transition there, maybe how that whole wholesaling business grew, but then what it changed into.
Yeah, I think that probably the biggest takeaway is, like I said, I did about 1,000 hours of research. And then I probably put in another 250 hours of actually taking action. And then dropped out of school May of 2018. We didn't close our first deal until July 18th of 2018. And so it was just quite a long road. And on our first deal, I'm calling my title attorney, a good friend of mine named John. He's like, yeah, well, pretty much everything that could have gone wrong here went wrong. And I'm happy for you for that, right? Because you're not really going to be phased. And so we did our first one in July. And then we did 2 in August, and then like 4 in the next months, to get to the point where a year later, I did about 100, and it just scaled up. And I have this sort of interesting pivotal moment in my life. In March of 2019, I was part of a mastermind group. It's called M1, March to a Million Net Worth. And what attracted me about this group was people thought bigger and people questioned their realities. And it's so rare for me to find that at that time. And so we did this retreat in Cabo, and we all decided to stay an extra day. And we're in a hot tub. We start asking questions that lead us down a path of pretty much a 10-hour conversation. And something caused me to want to turn on the voice recorder on my phone. And at the end of that 10-hour conversation, my life was completely different, because I was at this point where, from looking at, less than 1 year before, dropping out of school, $30 in my account, sleeping on an air mattress, to having seen that I leveraged all the education that I had, right, understanding the entire market, and saw that my access point, a lot of people, I think, want to find the formula. And so, to some degree, modeling someone that works. But I was just so impatient. I didn't want to spend 30 years to get where somebody who's 30 years ahead of me is. I wanted to see, how can I sort of find that, not a cheat code, but what's the shortest path for me to actually create and provide value. And so one of the biggest revelations I had listening to these podcasts was that I kept hearing again and again and again, people from all walks of life didn't have anything, figure out a way to make it happen, and then they had money, track records, and networks. They had all of it, probably more than you could ever need. And what was fascinating to me is, was like, okay, well, I don't have any of those things, right? I'm 16, 17, 18 years old. What are they still missing? What's still bottlenecking their business? And every single time, it came down to one thing: consistent access to off-market deals. Light bulb went off in my head. You can buy a nicer car with more money. You can buy a nicer watch with more money. You cannot buy a nicer real estate deal with more money, because the definition of a deal is that it's discounted. I was like, that's interesting. And then I looked at that and I was like, okay, well, if I can have 100 conversations with people a day, right? And I can find people who are in situations where they would rather choose speed and convenience over getting absolute highest price. I was like, I would be able to carve out a margin. Average out to about 14,000, and we did that 150 times. And that got me to the point where I was in March of 2019 in this hot tub in Cabo. I was like, I'm about to scale this up to the entire country. And so I wanted to move it into all 50 markets. And I had this wait, but why moment. And it was like, well, why do I want to do that? And then I got connected to some of my goals. And when I was in college, when I was really lacking direction, I wanted to find a North Star goal. And I was like, I love space since I was a kid. And I figure colonizing Mars is already pretty mainstream, or it's going to be in the next few years, which I'm very happy about, go humanity. But Titan was an interesting thing for me. Titan is Saturn's largest moon. And it's very interesting as a planet. I won't go too deep into it, but I said, yeah, I'm going to colonize Titan by 2050. And in all the groups and all the people, I declared that as a declaration. Everyone told me I was crazy. That was still my North Star. And I saw in order to do that, right, I need billions of dollars. I need an entire army. I need to learn leadership. I need to be able to do so many different things that I don't have. And I realized that getting to flipping a couple thousand homes was a kind of boring way to get there. And so I was like, how can I figure out what this problem is that allows me to actually make 14,000 per flip? And how can I build a solution that scales to provide a higher quality of service for people that are wanting to sell their house at a lower cost? And I think that's where value gets created.
Wow. Okay. So you found a goal. You found some BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal, right? And tell us a little bit about, though, the path to making that happen, right? I'm sure many hard lessons, many long nights, lots of hours worked, all those things, right? I want to go back too, because you showed that you would do that even when you were in high school. You were learning about real estate, right? Then you leave college, you're going to do the wholesaling business. You're putting in the time, right? You're willing to put in the hours, and that's what most people are not willing to do, right? And I think you mentioned it earlier as well. They look for this cookie cutter formula. Hey, how do I get there? But they're not always willing to do what it takes to make it happen. And you proved that numerous times now. And now you also set this goal, TitanX, right? Tell us a little bit more about, moving to that goal. Tell us a little bit of the learning experience and even moving from, say, specifically real estate into this different venture.
Yeah. The nice thing is I've been extremely humbled by it over the last 2 years. Because real estate, it is there's not nearly as many variables as when you build software. And then software is like, here, and then artificial intelligence is orders of magnitude higher. And so TitanX is the name of the company. It used to be called Achieve Intelligent Technologies, but then we're like, what happens when we have intelligent technology, right? It's sort of confusing. And so it stands for Titan Experiences, the world's smoothest customer experience. And when I was looking for what I wanted to do upon that, I didn't want to, suck value from the world. I wanted to create value. I wanted to increase the quality of life and decrease the cost of living for everybody who touched my work. And so founded this company, and basically, I wanted to build super intelligent personal assistants. I wanted to build an intelligent assistant that was able to understand your goals, understand your habits, and actually work with you, meeting you where you're at with what you want to get there, leveraging AI. Right now, the tools there's good tools there, but I was like, no product that's going to change the world is going to be one that you have to spend half your life inputting data about your life. I wanted something that'd be very seamless, that could understand the contextual ambiguities of what somebody wanted. And so I thought this technology of human-computer communication existed. I seriously thought it did. Turns out it doesn't. Turns out chatbots are terrible. It turns out that's why we wait on hold. And when I was sort of in this transition period, I remember, I was on a call with a utility company, and they made me wait on hold for like 2.5 hours and hung up on me twice. It's like, how are we putting people on the moon? 50 years ago, right? But this is still the case of customer service. I was like, if I don't do anything else with my life, if I solve customer service, I will pat myself on the back and feel like, did a job well done and created a lot of value. And so how it ties to real estate, I think, gave me this confidence that I would be able to look at an industry, see what are all the people, who are all the players, first of all, and then what do all those players have? And then what do they not have? And then how can I just focus on the things that they don't have? Because I don't really compete. I don't really have a lot of competition in the space. There's some companies doing the same thing, but it was kind of like the same thing with wholesaling. It was like, I don't really have a lot of competition because, even though it's super saturated, because I went and I spent the time to learn the fundamental mechanics of how real estate works and how marketing works and how the seller's mindset works and where things are going as it shifts with the market. And so all of that has come together. And now I've been able to fuse sort of that real estate, kind of like I was saying earlier about the, video game world and then reality, of fusing two worlds again together, which is my experience with real estate and this technology and building tools for investors to basically automatically locate off-market deals, and it'll have the conversations with the sellers that's going to make the difference. And it has been the most challenging but rewarding thing in my life. And I still feel like I'm just getting started. And the more that I learn, I feel like the more that there is to know, which has caused me to come up with this, kind of funny belief that feel like a symptom of getting truly wiser is feeling stupider, because you get to see more of the world and how things work. And when I was in my own little vertical of just, hey, I'm going to do this, whether it's video games or, inside of college, I was like, this is the world. As soon as you start going outside of that, the world's a lot bigger. And so inside of that, I've adopted here one of the most valuable things, which is that even though I'm, in a different stage of life, I have something very, to learn from each person. And I'm very curious and ask incredibly deep, sometimes cutting, sometimes offensive questions, not meaning to offend, because I really want to understand that person in their walk so I can learn from that and so I can contribute to the next person.
Are you still in real estate now? Are you still wholesaling or doing anything like that?
Yeah, so I haven't wholesaled a house in 2 years, but now that we're in our final stage of beta testing, I actually was like, I'm going to get back into this. I got to walk my own talk. And so pull the trigger on some pretty big mail campaigns, generating traffic every day here, testing the technology that I've built day in, day out for 2 years. And it's been really great to come back.
Wow. No, that's incredible. I love that. It's just interesting that oftentimes once we get that real estate bug, it's like, we start the wholesaling, we start flipping, maybe we start, maybe some rehab, some single family rentals and some smaller multifamily. Then finally we get into commercial real estate, and maybe we start sending, get it larger and growing, right? Well, you saw this need and you just said, you know what, real estate is great. I can see the need for that. And I love this business, but man, there's a need here. There's an opportunity that I can go capitalize on and help a lot of people in the process. And so I love that you weren't so laser focused on real estate that you just had blinders on, really, and that you missed this other opportunity that you pursued and what you just said, all this growth that has come because of that. So I just love the willingness to step out there. I would say all those things, you've stepped out of your comfort zone, right? And that's just another massive step. And I'm sure so much personal growth has come because of that. I've felt it myself, numerous times as I've said, you know what, okay, I've agreed to do something, right? And have no clue what's going to happen. And so love that. I just appreciate just your transparency about that. I know there's listeners who are wondering, right? Can I do that? Should I step out? Should I, get into real estate? Should I start my own business? So tell me though, what's the biggest thing holding you back now from scaling to the next level?
Yeah. So when I was first getting started, I heard this sort of common limiting belief that we have, which is that keeps us lone wolfing things, right? Nobody can do it as good as I can. When you're doing something that, you've educated yourself on and you've built you have a ton of practice, that's absolutely sometimes can be true or can feel true. With software though, the limiting factor, if it's like a chemical reaction, right? What's the element here that's the least amount is my tech network. I'm a real estate guy. I come from that, right? I didn't work at the tech companies, and seeing just how much of a different walk this is. And so being able to first bring on people who have walked the walk onto my team and build that network so I can have guides on this journey, because it's not even like it's harder if I try and do it myself, it's impossible. And I think that probably correlates to a lot of things, right? Like even with commercial real estate, there's massive learning curves. And sometimes the things that seem the simplest, right? There could be, trolls hiding under that bridge that you're not expecting, and the deal's looking so good and you basically are paying the tuition. I think the beauty of finding guides and people along the way is that they've already got the tuition. They already paid their tuition, and you guys just get to create value together. And I'd rather learn through having them teach me than learn through, slamming my face in the, door every single day, trying to blindly find my way through this. So I would say that would be the biggest thing holding me back is the network that I have, which I'm actively building every single day, of people who have walked this walk in the tech space, who have scaled organizations. That's what I would say for sure, 100%.
That's how important your network is. That's why we're at GoBundance. We are networking and meeting other people who can push us and who are ahead of us in many ways, and who we may be ahead of as well in many ways also. I wanted to ask you, how did you fund this? Did you raise money? How did you fund starting a tech business?
Well, I think I funded it first by thinking it was going to be a lot less expensive than it was going to be. And so the first $250,000, I basically would make money from my wholesaling and then put it into the paying the engineers. I'm at a $20,000, $25,000 per month burn. Until I realized the best talent, the people I actually need were 10, 15, 20K per month. And that for me, I had a job and we were still developing the core IP. We were still building this, it's patent pending now, but I had this really strange phenomenon happening, which is I was context switching. I was going from real estate closing deals, managing title companies, to developing deep tech. And I was getting to the point where I was not doing either one really well. And I also saw that I'm building this thing in a vacuum. And I was like, look, I want to see what the world has to think about my ideas. And I want to use the world's feedback to refine that. And so I started Angel. I started raising money from friends, family, mom, grandma, friends, 10th cousins, like all of it, 5,000, 10,000 chunks, right? To date, we've raised 1.5 million from 35 people. But the part of it that sort of goes back to that, hustle is I had to pitch 500 people. And the value from pitching 500 people is not the money, but the amount of questions that I had that the market will not be able to stump me. I have plans A to Z for every different combination of circumstance because I've had those conversations. And everybody's going to tell you, your idea is good if they want to be your friend until you ask them to pull out a checkbook. Then you can really see how good they think your idea is and how much they believe in you. And so that's how I funded it so far.
That's incredible. I appreciate you saying, hey, I had to talk to 500 people to get 35 to invest, and you raised 1.2 million. Congratulations, by the way. And many of the listeners are trying to raise money as well. They're learning that process. They're learning how to present themselves well or present a deal, right? And communicate with investors. And you got to get good at rejection, right? You got to be okay with it. Hey, just go in there and make it happen. If it's the 100th person that's going to say yes, guess what? The sooner you get started, the sooner you get to the 100th person, right? I love that mentality, just what you did there. Were you going to say something about that?
Each pitch you get better, right? That was sort of this compound effect, this exponential sort of theme that is an undercurrent to my life. And with this technology, every single day, we build off of what we did the day before. That's compounding. It's not linear. There's no resetting, right? And I think it's the same thing when you're finding any skill, whether it's, painting or dancing or whatever, right? Or pitching or raising money every single time. If you are open to hear people's feedback, they will tell you what you could have done differently. They will tell you their concerns. And so I don't think I raised for the first 50 people that I pitched to. But my goal was not to raise money. My goal was to refine my pitch. And what refining my pitch looked like was actually getting clear on what I'm doing myself and what our actual plans are and how we plan to navigate these issues.
That's incredible. I love how you approach that. I think that's so helpful to the listeners. Even the questions from investors, when you don't know the answer, it's pretty awkward maybe at first, right? However, you just got better. You're going to go and figure that answer out. You're going to go study, and you're going to be prepared for the next time that's asked. So you got better. Even though that person may never talk to you again or maybe never invest with you, you got better because you were willing to be uncomfortable and put yourself in that position. All right, last question. How do you like to give back?
Yeah, that's a great question. I like to give back by believing in this passing the torch kind of mentality. I don't want to, if somebody's cold, right? I don't want to go and warm them up for a little bit, and then when I leave, they're going to be cold again. I believe that there's fire inside each one of us. And the greatest conversations I've ever had is when people are on, trajectory A, and their life's not exciting. And through some conversations that I have with them, or even just a couple questions, they get re-present to their purpose. They get re-present to their fire. And so having those conversations and facilitating environments where we have those conversations, ask the tough questions. I debate people on crypto. I debate people on, different things in real estate, not because I just like to argue. I actually hate arguing, but I like to ask the questions and for people to really see that once we become successful, and that's, common with this group, we're sort of still looking for that next purpose. And there's a massive amount of power that we have and a massive amount of opportunity to give back. And so while I could give back, I'm building technology to do that at a high level. I try and make material difference with each person that I come into contact with.
Well, I'm encouraged just by meeting you and hearing your story. I know the listeners are as well. I mean, from 16 to 18 to now 22, you've accomplished a lot. And it's incredible. It's rare, right? It's rare to be at 16 or 18 and have that mentality, have that drive, and really the self-discipline. Right. And I love talking about self-discipline as well, even through the morning routine. It's so important. And it is the consistency, right? It is the daily actions that build up, like you talked about, over a long period of time. And you are a great example of that. I look forward to seeing you a year from now and 5 years from now, right? And having you back on the show and us talking about your journey and what you've accomplished.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Will, where can people get in touch with you and find you?
Yeah, awesome. So just in general, I post a lot of cool content on my Instagram, will.jbrown. You can find me on LinkedIn as well, William Brown. And if you're interested in learning more about what we're building with plug and play off-market deal gen, TitanX.ai. So that's our site. I look forward to hear anybody, and I'm going to have a Calendly link on there as well, where I'm going to offer up 10, 15 minutes of just, ask me anything that you want, open to everybody, no cost, there on the site as well. So if you have another question for me or you just want to chat or connect, please reach out.
All right, so Will, thank you again for being an amazing guest on the Real Estate Syndication Show. I look forward to staying in touch with you, and I hope you have a blessed day.
Thanks so much. See you next time.
Thank you for being a loyal listener of the show. Please subscribe and share it with your friends. We want to help you become the passive investor you've always wanted to become, but also the operator you've always wanted to become. We want to be the number one resource for your real estate investing journey. But go to lifebridgecapital.com where you can start investing in real estate today.